Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Index Office Hours. Today is the 26th of March, and this is Index Office Hours 150, a special episode. I can't believe we're at 150. It is an incredible feat. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in every single week. So, I will start off, as always, with a rundown of what we do here, and that is this is the town square where ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexes. This is a conversation. We love participation. So if you would like to get involved in today's conversation, please do via voice, which if you're having any troubles, please let me know and I will try and get that sorted for you, or via text, which many of you are already utilizing in the text box over there. As a reminder, this is a call that's going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So, as always, I start off with a shout out to the latest GRT IQ episode, and today is no different. And today we're going to be shouting out GRT IQ episode 161 with Kirsten. And Kirsten is the co-founder of Talent Layer. And Talent Layer is a new open protocol that allows, and developer kit that allows people to create service marketplaces. So if you think, the Fivers of the world, all of these things, you have to. The issue with these platforms is that you build up a reputation in them, and when you want to migrate to another one, you can't bring your reputation and all of the work that you've done. And so, what Talent Layer are doing is they're building an open protocol that allows people to build service-based marketplaces, such that you're able to port identity and work and all of these things over to various different new marketplaces. So if you're interested in learning a bit about Talent Layer and a bit about Kirsten's background and how she got into Web3 and how she came up with the idea of Talent Layer, then definitely go check out that episode there. As always, Juan is super speedy with the agenda and the GRTIQ episode. So thank you very much, my friend. And with that, I will hand over to Anna for our regularly scheduled Repo Watch section.
Thank you, Abel, and hello, everyone. Okay, so going straight into Repo Watch this week with execution layer clients, we have had a new release of 𝗟𝗏𝗀𝗀. This is version 2.59.0. It includes more aggressive pruning of logs and receipts for nodes with the prune flag HRTC specified. And it results in 2 times smaller disk footprint. Note that this feature is only enabled for new nodes, and to enable it for an existing node, you have to resync it from scratch. It also includes transaction lookups by hash. Transaction lookup by hash was causing high IO and page cache evictions. So if you have too many RPC requests, this new feature will help. And then finally, all coupling users need to reset the headers and the snapshots of 𝗟𝗏𝗀𝗀, and there are step-by-step steps on how to do this. So please do check out the release notes on this specific release. Then we have had a new release of Get. This is version 1.13.14, and it's a small maintenance release with a handful of polishes to do with the blob tool. This release is not critical for the Cancun fork, but it is recommended to make Get lighter in anticipation of unknown blob load. We have had 2 new releases for Firehose Ethereum. So version 2.3.6, which contains some substream support for substream tier 2 max concurrent request flags to limit the number of concurrent requests to tier 2. It had trace ID for RPC calls, and it has a few more fixes. And then we also had the latest release, which is 2.3.7. This fixes tools check merged block default range when R range is not provided to now be between 0 and infinity. and whereas previously was between head and infinity. It also added some API keys based for authentication to tool Firehose client and to Firehose single block client. And it has a few more changes, so please check out this release as well. Then Avalanche has had a new release. This is version 1.11.3. And this removes some platform-related API, and it also removes some Avalanche Go configs. So a bunch of them related to network peer list, and some related to consensus accepted frontiers. It also adds P-chain, X-chain, and C-chains configs for push gossip %stake. And then actually this is it this week. We don't have any more changes, any more releases for consensus layer clients or the graph stack. And quickly checking the chat, I think we're good. Check out those Firehose features if you are running them, and let us know if you've had any issues with any of the releases. And with that, I'm handing over to Juan. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Okay, Protocol Watch is going to be a little bit short today, but let's get down to business. First of all, forum governance, we don't have any new updates since last IOH. For forum research, we do. There's a small thread, which was mostly a question about a user which is experiencing some slowness when syncing a subgraph, and it has been helped with a few of the docs and examples on how to improve that. Again, it's a little bit hard to say what could be the cause, given that subgraphs could be very slow or very fast depending on how they are made. So hopefully the user can get this sorted out relatively quickly. Then for the contracts repository, we have 2 PRs, one for the SAO data edge contracts on testnet to deploy them, and then another to add the data edge contracts to the repository itself. Then for the network subgraphs, we don't have any new updates on any of them. There have been a little bit of work on the current network subgraph, mainly to add the missing L2 tests. So for a little bit of context, the current network subgraph had L1 tests and L2 tests, but there were a few differences in how they are set up. Particularly, the L2 tests need to consider a few differences on how the L2 environment is set up to be able to run properly. They have been fixed and they are in staging, waiting to be merged relatively soon. So yeah, the L2 tests are working and everything's cool with that. For the rest of the subgraphs, there haven't been any updates, except for the EVO, which might experience some updates in the near future, but that's pretty much it. No current releases are expected this week. That's pretty much it for Protocol Watch. So I'm going to hand it over to Paka for Project Watch. And I think he's here.
Appreciate the round of applause. He is not here, so we are going to swiftly move on to the next section.
F in the chat then.
F in the chat indeed. He's got a clash for a meeting, so he cannot make it. But he will be back with us next week. Alrighty, Adam is also supposed to be with us as well, but he is not here. I've just texted him on Slack. Hopefully he shows up soon. And so we will go straight into the alpha leak of today's conversation. Oh, yeah, what's up?
Over to Sarah and Bubra, we can quickly share, because I think Adam was supposed to be here to share something about the phase of the sunrise that is complete. So I can quickly share the blog post in the chat for anyone who is interested. And yeah, I think there is some important updates. One is like a free query plan is now available on the Graph network. There is also new payments methods available, and also a new user interface. So yeah, if you are interested in learning more, you can go in depth in the article.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, that is the post. Yeah, go check it out. Awesome. So now I will hand over to Sarah and Burak, who are going to share some alpha with us on a new project called 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧. So I believe, Sarah, you're leading. So without further ado, feel free to take it away.
Hey everyone. Hi, this is Sarah from 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗂. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep,
Great.
loud and clear.
Great. Today I will be sharing with you one of the products we have been working at 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗂 recently. It's called 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂. What is 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂? It's a Graph Protocol Explorer. It's an application with both on-chain and off-chain data and analytics on indexing performance, protocol metrics, and parameters. And as you all know, 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂 is also an indexer. So 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂 is built by an indexer for indexers, keeping in mind the perspective and needs of an indexer. And 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂 will evolve with your feedback. So please share your feedback with us. Please tell us what you need to see, what you want to see on 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂, so that you can become a better indexer. This is a sneak peek to 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂. We're going to have a live demo in a moment. But before that, why are we building 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂? So as a core developer of the graph, we're working on tools that provide blockchain data to users, like subgraphs and substreams. And then as an indexer, we use these tools to serve the data to the end user. And we thought that becoming the end user by building 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗂, we understand the users better and become a better core developer and a better indexer. Another motivation we had was that we noticed the scarcity of good tools to analyze our indexing operations. So we wanted to build an app that will allow both us and other indexers to understand the quality of service of their indexing operations. Another motivation we had was to build a compelling app for all the users in the graph ecosystem to understand the marketplace. So the graph is evolving with the world of data services, and new gateways are being added to the protocol. And we will evolve 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂 alongside the graph to stay relevant, up to date, and to stay as a good source of information for the whole protocol. So let's see what 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂 looks like now. Okay, this is the app. This is 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗂. This is our homepage. As you know, Graph has migrated to Arbitrum, so all the data you see here is from Arbitrum, hence the cute logo here. These are some general protocol metrics, some stats on GRT, total rewards and fees. These are the last 90-day distribution for rewards and fees. You can see some days are more popular than the others. This card is for the information for today. You can see we have many rewards generated today, so indexers are working. We have many new delegators and one new indexer, so welcome. I hope you're here. We have the protocol parameters, and we have some tables for the top indexers and top subgraph deployments. Currently, the top indexers are ranked by the query fees collected over all time, but we're going to change this very soon to query fees settled in the last 90 days. We think that's more insightful for the ranking. And subgraph deployments are ranked by current signal. And then we have the general tables here where you can see all the indexers, search and sort by the headlines, and subgraph deployments. But let's see some of the pages. So by query fees collected, 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧 is the best indexer right now. You guys are already familiar with most of the metrics here, so I'll focus on the things that might be more interesting. For instance, this is a very good indexer. You can also tell by the fact that they're running a subgraph radio. And they have very good APR, so I'll explain the APR calculations here. We used the data for the last 90 days, so this is historical APRs. From bottom to top, delegator query fees APR is very clear what a delegator earns as a percentage from the delegation they make to this specific indexer. And then same thing for rewards, and this is the total they make. Very similar figures for the indexer's self-stake, and then we have the gross values. These take into consideration the whole indexer stake with the self-stake and the delegated stake. And then the gross total is basically the overall indexing operations APR. It's around 15% for this indexer. We can also see their performance here. This data is from the quality of service subgraph. You can see their average query fees, query count, query fees. This is the total. So you can see when their query count is increasing, also their query fees, total query fees has increased. You can see they had a bad day here. I bet it was stressful. And let's look at other indexers. Let's see another one. This one is also a delegator and a curator, and they're almost a year old. And they're a good indexer, but they're not on subgraph radio. So makes you wonder. Let's look at another one. This indexer, for instance, had a very happy day. Let's see, 10th of March. So I wonder what happened that day. So we go on to investigate on the allocations of this indexer, and we see, okay, if they had many rewards generated, I can sort by the rewards and see, okay, they closed an allocation on 10th of March and generated many rewards. What makes you wonder how that happened with so little allocation. So let's go to the subgraph deployment and continue our investigation. You can see there is the 10th of March with many rewards. Let's see. But it's interesting because there was another indexer with much more stake in a very similar period of time, but they generated nothing. And I wonder why. And then I see, okay, they closed with a 0 proof of indexing. So they weren't eligible. As you can see, you can investigate your indexing operations on Graphseer or other indexers' indexing operations. Who else should we look at? Let's see other indexers here. For instance, we had another one. Maybe I can sort by the APRs and look at other indexers. We have someone with a reasonable APR, but they were in the bottom. Let's see what they're doing recently. We can see if they were active. They're still serving queries. Not much though. Maybe we should check on them if they're okay. So this is Graphseer so far. This is just the beginning. This is basically the minimum viable product we had in mind. We shared this last week with an early set of indexers and core developers and got some feedback. We already implemented some of them. We're working on the rest. But as I said, this is just the beginning, so I want to share the timeline with you. Here we are on the public launch of Graphseer. We are so excited to share this with you guys, and we really would like to hear your feedback. We're going to have a feedback session in a moment. Please tell us what you want to see on Graphseer, and we're going to make sure to work hard to implement it. Some of the things that we have in mind, some of the bigger steps upcoming. One of them is integrating GraphCast. You already saw a cute little badge for the indexers that are active on GraphCast. We also want to add some more message stats, like the number of messages an indexer is sending, or number of subgraphs they're sending messages for, and so forth, and so on. We also have the multi-gateway feature for the graph. We want to make sure that Graphseer is the place you go to understand your performance across all the gateways in the protocol. So we're going to be working for that. I would like to ask everyone to visit Graphseer right now. Pili is going to share the link in the chat right now. We have a username and the password. You can log in. Pili is also going to share those in the chat. We have a couple of minutes for you to visit the website and provide some feedback for us. We have a feedback form that's also going to be on the chat, but you can just unmute yourself or write it on the chat if you have any questions, any feedback. We have some questions to initiate the thought process for the feedback. Maybe you can tell us what you want to see next on Graphseer, what you like the most, what you like the least. Or if you could magically just add a new feature, what would it be? Thank you. Give you guys a couple of moments. We'll give you guys a couple of moments to just share your feedback with us. I see, yes, marking your indexer, or maybe marking your favorite indexers might be a good feature. Thank you for sharing, Steak Machine.
I also saw the comment of Mark Andre in the chat about why changing the criteria about the today window or more days. I want to ask you, Mark Andre, what kind of information do you think that would be better, and why do you think that today information is useful?
I think Marc-Andre is typing. We've got another one from Steak Machine saying comparison between indexes.
Yep, that's on the list. We're working on it. Good point.
Amazing.
Comparison with the indexers, comparison with the average indexer performance, also on the list.
Sort by regions as well is another one coming from Vince.
You mean the location, the self-reported indexer location?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, IP. That's also on the list. Thank you, Payne. I'll be just sharing the form link again in case it got lost in the chat. Yeah, I see that there's a comment which says showing the indexing progress bar from Explorer would be useful. I like to check if the subgraph is indexable by others before allocating. Good point.
I think we already kind of like we're figuring out about the indexing statuses endpoint. I'm not entirely sure if it was in backlog already, but it's a good feedback. But we don't want to stress their endpoints too much, so we'll try to figure out the best solution to avoid spamming indexers with requests for indexing statuses.
It's true, Han. We already have it in the backlog. I think this was one of the feedback Jim has provided as well.
Yep.
Would be also nice to know if you have any doubts about calculations, or what do you think about also tooltips, and yep, if you think there is any term or measure calculations, etc., that it's not clear.
Yes, to Vincent's point on normalized numbers on latency and success rate, I guess having some averages would help with that.
There is a question in the chat, Sarah, from Pabli, that is asking if does this include that version or just current versions?
Just the current version. What do we mean? This, I'm not sure I understand the question. All version or just the current version for query fees? Okay, this is subgraph deployment. So it is all the query fees for that deployment. And as one states, it's specific to a version.
If there are multiple subgraphs with different versions that are all pointing to the same, it should contain all of the values for all of those. But that's not often, what happens. It's pretty weird to have the same deployment in different subgraphs. But yeah, it's something that happens also in the subgraph, in the network subgraph, that you have this notion of named subgraph, subgraph versions of a named subgraph, and then you have the deployment, which is the base unit. Deployments are actually, you can think of them as the IPFS hash, and they are basically what they are the base unit that collects all of those query fees, and the base unit that indexers use. To Mark Andre's comment on average query success rate, indexer latency, and blocks behind, yes, they're not particularly blocks behind this metric that we're trying to refactor in a way, because it's not the same to be 10 blocks behind on Arbitrum than 10 blocks behind on mainnet, for putting a random number. We are trying to come up with a better solution, kind of like to express time. Maybe it's just average seconds or days or whatever behind. Probably seconds is a little bit better, but we're not currently able to do that yet for the MVP. Hopefully we can improve that, at least for the blocks behind. Latency, I think it's okay. I'm not too sure what you think can be very different for each subgraph, for example. Yes, it can be very different for each subgraph, particularly even for within a same subgraph. For different queries, you can have very different latency. But yeah, currently we can have averages. Maybe in the future we can have percentiles, which can better express those ranges, so to speak. But yeah, I think there's still metrics for each of those subgraphs that are separated. I'm not entirely sure. I might be saying bullshit, but I think you can also see the latency for a single subgraph, for a single indexer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, though.
Overview tab of a subgraph deployment page, you can also see the quality of service data of subgraphs. I'm sorry, the subgraph deployments. But I'm not sure if we added that yet, the latency. I'm checking now. We didn't add the latency chart, but it's not going to be a problem to add that.
I can see quite a few people typing to what I would assume is Billy's question on new features.
not sure, Sarah, if you already saw the Hosh comment on the chat about that looking at the leapfrogs APR and GraphZero, it shows less than the main network explorer.
So I don't know what they use, what formula they use to calculate the APR, but we take into consideration the change in stake over a period of time. So I'm not sure how they're calculating that, or if they're using Arbitrum data, or if they're taking into consideration the change in the stake. So we calculate the APRs by calculating the average stake over a period of time. Right now it's 90 days. And then we look at all the generated rewards and fees, and then, get the result using that data. And I'm not sure if they're doing that. If we use the final stake or the initial stake, the APR would look different, maybe higher, maybe lower. I believe taking the average is the most accurate version. I do not know how they calculate it, but we take average. So I'm just saying if they're using a different formula, that might cause the discrepancy. And about sorting on queries collected per time frame, I mentioned it in the very beginning, but we're gonna also do that. We're gonna rank indexers, especially the top indexers and maybe all of the indexers, by settled queries in the last 90 days. For the reasons you mentioned, Vince, we believe that it's looking at the recent data is more relevant for the judging indexing performance.
We've got another one from Marc-Andre saying, I would like to focus on historical performance / APR, but the current value is useful too. I guess that's a bit of a feature request.
Could you please clarify what you mean by the current value?
What I would assume is like current APR is interesting, but he would also like more information on like historical performance / APR is how I read it. I could be wrong.
So, okay, current APR. But, for me to calculate the APR, I should at least have, even if it's a small period of time, I should have a period so I know how many rewards or fees are generated in that period. So it's going to be historical, but not so historical. Maybe a daily APR, you mean, by the current, or overall APR? I just want to clarify.
Seems like Mark is typing.
Maybe this comment was regarding the projected APRs. What do we guess the APR would be given the situation of the indexer right at this moment? We also have that in the backlog if that was the feature request.
Okay, maybe I should just speak instead of trying to type. So by current APR, I mean assuming no other change of network, no new subgraph, no curation change, no allocation change by any other indexer. Assuming this, what will be the indexing reward and query fees? Oh, well, just indexing reward for the next period of time.
I understand. Okay. Yep.
And
Thank you.
and that's sorry, it's a good thing that you show the historical EPR on a certain period of time. That's the best number for, I think, for delegators and for the general public. But yeah, for indexers, sometimes we like to see what's the impact of our allocation change.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Would be also nice to know what do you think about the historical APRs on the indexer profile page in the overview tab, because we spent a few time when building graphs here thinking about the tooltips and also how to explain these terms. Would be nice to know if these terms are also useful for indexers.
Yeah, I think that's good to have the historical EPR, but you should publish or put more details about your calculation, because these questions will come up again. We'll see people asking us why GraphSeer has a different number than Explorer or GraphScan or anywhere else, and it'd be great if we can give a proper answer.
Do you think that, for example, glossary would be good to be added to graphs here, where you can find all the explanations and calculations?
Yeah, sure. For these for these advanced details like this, it makes sense. Tooltip, you can't put everything in a tooltip, but having at least a page somewhere that explains the methodology, that I think that's a good thing to do in general.
I know most of you are indexers, but it would be also nice to know if there is any delegator to have their perspective from them about if you think that GraphSeer can help you to improve your performance in the network.
Not to put him on the spot, but I believe 𝗨𝗀𝗶𝗀𝗀 is here. Maybe you can share your perspective.
I like the historical when you go into the indexer page. I guess on first glance, it's not super clear as to what those are. But I guess if you hover over question mark, it gives you a little bit of a definition. So I think that helps if that explains that.
We've got a question from Matthew saying, when new data services are added to the network, how does that change things?
So one of the things that will change is that new data service means a new gateway, and we're listening to, we have one gateway that we listen to right now, and we will add the gateways and listen to other data services and provide more, provide data for those data services as well.
Awesome. I see Derek is typing again. He's got another question. Will delegators also share incentives for new data sources? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't understand that question as well. Do you understand it?
Share in the incentive for new data sources. I'm not sure I understand the question, but this I think is more a question for the world of data services than for GraphSeer, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, definitely true. I was just throwing it out there just to see if we've got any insight. I mean, like I would imagine if we're going to be doing, providing SQL services, there would be some type of an incentive or some type of payment when someone queries it, trying to see if delegators would also take a share of the query fees or whatever the incentive structure is for new data sources. But I realize that might not be appropriate for this conversation. Just trying to see if we had any intel.
Does anyone have anything to say to that question?
Sure. So I think that we can, to some degree, there's going to be like flexibility for this for the data service developers, but certainly like some of the original initial designs that come around at the moment build on the existing query mechanisms. So so in that case, the cuts and calculations will be as they are currently, but I think that we can expect that to evolve over time, because we're sort of starting out with the base case, which is obviously subgraph data service, and then future data services might have more varied and different needs.
I see that Billy's responded to Josh there. 𝗨𝗀𝗶 has put in something here from a delegator's perspective. If you guys want to have a look at that.
Yeah, I see there's a comment for the projected APR for an indexer for delegators. So they would be able to see what they would gain if they delegated this amount of GRT to an indexer. I think that would be a very cool feature. Yeah, thank you.
That would be very cool. Yeah, I would like that. I just read what Josh said. Jesus Christ. Yeah, sure. Adam is back in the room. Pity did share the post, but if you and she gave some context, but Adam, if you want to share some additional context on the post or the sunrise update, feel free to.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I wasn't here at the start. So I guess I'm not sure exactly was already shared, but there I guess there've been posts in a bunch of places just about the Sunray completion. So again, for folks' awareness, this is part of the sunrise of decentralized data. The sunrays, this first phase where we've been adding a bunch of functionality to Subgraph Studio, to also like our indexing setup on the network, where the goal is really to provide a really streamlined experience for developers to upgrade their subgraphs from the hosted service to the network. Thanks, 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗪, for sharing that link. So this is sort of phase 1 of 3. There are a few different things to call out here. Some were shipped a while ago, some have been shipped just in the last week or couple of weeks, whether that's in terms of the upgrade indexer, the availability of all sort of hosted service chains for querying on the network. There's quite a cool thing there where the gateway is actually no longer got a dependency on sort of RPCs, so we can support more and more chains for querying in a much more streamlined way. There's a free query plan for developers on the Graph network. We heard a lot that that initial barrier of needing to sort of load up a billing balance before you could make queries was off-putting and a friction point. So there's a free query plan. As well as that, to streamline things even more, we're supporting card payments, so folks can connect a card to pay for queries without having to touch GRT or ETH or Arbitrum ETH. So again, that's just trying to streamline things. And finally there's a streamlined sort of upgrade flow for subgraphs going from the hosted service to the studio, where essentially your subgraph, you can select your subgraphs, identify which wallet you want to essentially own those subgraphs on the network, and then there's an automatic sort of publish and transfer process which publishes subgraphs and then transfers them to the wallet you specify. So we've really just been trying to remove friction and streamline that user experience. So obviously these are mostly sort of subgraph developer facing functionality, but wanted to come here just to answer any questions or discuss it, or see if anyone had any aspects of that they wanted to discuss. I mean, one other thing which happened this week, which is maybe of interest to this group, is that the gateway has also now been open sourced this week. So that is, I'm not sure if that's been announced, but it's happened. So that's again, this is all just part of the process of looking to upgrade all developers to the network, and open to questions.
Awesome, thanks so much. I see a few people typing, so assuming there's some questions coming. Yes, that's a great suggestion, Josh. I will reach out and try and get that sorted. That's a phenomenal idea. Any thoughts on what Adam just shared? See a few people typing. Has anyone got the link to the repo? I will try and find it. If not, nice. Thanks for sharing, Adam.
Right. Always open open for like any questions that folks have. Feel free to reach out in any channel.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate the update there. And oh, we got a question. Is the game open source network? Gateway question from Payne, if you want to have a look at that before we wrap, Adam.
So I think the premise of all of this is that we're building open software, and having an open source gateway, or at least from our perspective as Edgenode, we think is pretty fundamental to and so yeah, so I can see that angle, but I think that actually the strength of the graph is not necessarily just the code, but also the community and the ecosystem. So folks can maybe have access to see how the gateway works. It's not a huge code base, it's very elegant, and Theo's done great work, but we're excited for it to be open source.
It's a big step, big step. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think the network effects already in the ecosystem with the amount of subgraphs that exist, and various other aspects like indexes on the network, and all this stuff, I think is the true value add that's hard to replicate with just all the code from the graph. So I definitely agree there. Okay, wonderful. Well, we're coming into the final couple of minutes, so I'll take this opportunity to say thank you to Adam for sharing that update there, and thank you for the entire GraphOps team, particularly Sarah, who led the conversation on everything Graphsia and sharing the alpha leak there. Please do share the feedback. This is something that's going to evolve a lot over the coming days, weeks, months, with all of the input that you guys give. So yeah, if you could go to the link that Pili just posted there. Thank you so much for posting, Pili. Please do share your feedback, and we'll try and make this thing the best Explorer data dashboard possible. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all, and you know what it is. Same time next week. We'll see you then. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your... Have a